When I was in middle school, I wanted to be someone other than who I was. I longed for a tight-knit friend group, or to be one of the popular kids, or to feel truly accepted by my peers, or anything, really. And I was sure that everything about me was standing in the way of that. I wrote long diatribes in my diaries, beating myself up for not being more interesting, more charismatic, more something. I was sure that if I just figured out how to be different, then all my problems would be solved. I was a nerdy, quiet kid with a rotating carousel of niche interests that left me feeling out of step with the other kids. I was also the only non-Catholic kid in a Catholic school, so I wasn't allowed to take communion or go to confession, and I didn't go to church on Sunday with all the other families, so I felt like I had to try extra hard to blend in. I probably felt like this because my mom talked about it a lot. I think as one of the only parents who wasn't going to church together with everyone else on Sundays, she felt left out herself, so she made sure to remind me that I was on the outside too. I did have one really close friend, my next door neighbor, Daisy. Daisy was my age and had moved into the house next door when I was 5. We didn't go to the same school, but we were fast friends. While I was reserved and shy, she was bubbly and fun. She pet every dog and made friends with everyone. I was too scared to make eye contact with anyone, and come to think of it, I was also afraid of dogs. To me, Daisy was the epitome of coolness. One day when we were about 11, she showed me Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein. My parents weren't really into pop culture and definitely didn't care to introduce me to it, so I had never heard of Mel Brooks, but when Daisy asked me if I wanted to watch a hilarious movie, I quickly agreed. I pretty much wanted to do anything anybody else wanted to do in hopes of absorbing some of their life force that was definitely better than mine. I had barely even seen a movie that wasn't made for children, and my mind was blown. I thought it was hilarious, but more than that, it felt like I'd been initiated into a club, into society, something I had always felt a little bit was outside of my reach. It seemed like a movie for grown-ups. Interesting grown-ups. There's a scene in Young Frankenstein where a young, hot Terry Garr appears in the back of a wagon. It's how we're introduced to her character, when she pops up, asking Gene Wilder's character if he would like a roll in the hay. He's taken aback, and she proceeds to roll around and say, like this, roll, roll, roll in the hay. We thought this was very funny and very quotable, but we were 11 and we didn't understand the double entendre. So finally, one day Daisy's mom caught us running around the neighborhood singing, roll, roll, roll in the hay, very loudly, and had to explain the significance. She was mortified, we were mortified, but I felt like I was in on something, a caper, an escapade. We were embarrassed together, unlike my default state, which was feeling embarrassed alone. It turned out that Young Frankenstein was merely the gateway drug, first to the wider Mel Brooks catalog, and then to classic cinema as a whole, which I immersed myself in with a passion. In particular, I idolized Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. I wanted to have this kind of ethereal, magnetic quality about me. Maybe I could be like her. The next year, in 7th grade, my family got cable, and I discovered Nick at Night. I Love Lucy, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, I Dream of Jeannie. I loved the half-hour sitcoms where everything wrapped up neatly in 22 minutes. There were wacky misunderstandings, but at the end, everybody compared notes, laughed together, and learned some kind of emotional lesson. I needed that catharsis over and over again on repeat. I lobbied for time to watch on nights when my brother hadn't already claimed the TV to watch sports. I also had a little TV in my bedroom, which didn't have cable. But on that one, I started watching Conan O'Brien and Saturday Night Live featuring Tina Fey on Weekend Update. I'd had glasses since I was 4 years old and always felt like a dork because of them. Seeing a nerdy brunette with glasses on TV being celebrated was a shock, and actually revolutionary in 1999. Maybe I could be like her. I was drawn to comedy. I figured if I was charismatic and funny, maybe that would fix everything. I hoped that all these sketches and classic sitcoms would rub off on me, that they would make me a different, more compelling person. Maybe then I would join the ranks of the popular kids. Of course, all the girls I was trying to befriend at school were watching Friends, and I was trying to be just like Laverne and Shirley. So this wasn't really a straightforward path. Daisy was totally on board with all of this, though, schlemiel, schlemazel, and all. She didn't have cable, so we'd have sleepovers at my house that were completely built around watching TV Land for as long as we could keep our eyes open. An entire world formed between 10 p.m. and whenever we nodded off. We began writing a newspaper, a slumber party gazette. Each edition was written by hand and marker, and they featured reviews of Dick Van Dyke Show episodes interspersed with invented drama and absurdist advice columns. We found a pile of abandoned Spice Girl Barbies among piles of junk in my bedroom, and they became a part of the sleepover cinematic universe. We used our limited sewing skills to make clothing for them, a couture line made up of fabric scraps from my mom's collection. We assigned them alt personalities, making them pseudo-influencers in our invented reality. Every time she slept over, there was a new edition of the newspaper. This only happened every couple of months because we went to different schools, and as my mom reminded me often, Daisy had a lot of other friends. But it was a reprieve from the rest of my life. Yes, obviously this was all weird and dorky, but I wasn't alone in it this time. I felt accepted by my peer, even if it was only one of them. But when we weren't disappearing into our own made-up universe, I was battling the real world in 7th grade, and it was kicking my ass, actually. I was always the kid who was left without a partner in group projects. My alleged friends were going through a phase where they liked to run away from me at recess for completely unclear reasons. I'm pretty sure this is a preteen girl rite of passage, but I did not know that yet, and I took it very personally. I read an article about clinical depression in a Girl's Life magazine, and I felt a bunch of synapses go off in my brain. There was a name for what I was feeling. I went to my mom, pointed to the article, and I said, "I think I have this." She was unimpressed. "If you think you need therapy so badly, then you can go see the school counselor," she told me. It felt like she was calling my bluff. But I was serious, and I thought, I'll show her. Challenge accepted. I made an appointment with the counselor, which takes a lot of executive function and initiative for a 12-year-old. The counselor's name was Nell, and she reminded me just a little bit of Mrs. Doubtfire. And she asked me questions about my life, which I answered honestly and with no filter. I was really unhappy, and I really hated myself, and it showed. I probably said some kind of magic mandated reporter activation words like, "I wish I could just disappear." We wrapped up the session, and Nell sent me on my way, and it felt really good to talk. The following week, she sent a handwritten note home to my parents in loopy purple gel pen, informing them that I may be suicidal. My mom took the note straight to my bedroom and said, "This isn't true, is it?" It wasn't, really. I had no intentions, no plan. So it was easy to play it off, to laugh with her about it. No way that was true. That lady is crazy. My mom labeled the counselor a quack, and we moved on. I felt ashamed about the whole thing. I'd been too honest, and I had learned my lesson. It was a misunderstanding, but it didn't feel very wacky, and there was no catharsis. That summer, I discovered that The Nanny was on at midnight every night, syndicated on a local station, and I could watch it on the little TV in my bedroom. I eagerly stayed up every night to watch. Her voice was supposed to be a punchline, but Fran was funny, sexy, and stylish, and seemed like a modern-day Lucille Ball. I knew I wanted to be like her. And watching her and all the other women doing comedy on TV helped me understand that there was a lineage here, something even bigger that I could be a part of someday. It helped me make sense of a world that felt like opaque chaos. It felt like I was trying to cobble together a personality from all of these women to figure out who I was, Frankensteining myself together from Audrey Hepburn movies and SNL sketches, taking a haircut from there, a turn of phrase from there, filtering them all through my own probably abnormal brain, dressing it all up in loud vintage clothing and teaching myself how to be one of the funny, interesting people I'd admired from afar. And the monster that resulted? She never figured out how to be popular in middle school. But maybe that wouldn't have made her interesting anyway. Thank you.